Have you heard? Sonic Nights is the event of the summer. Like, half the city will be there after 8 p.m.
Oh, you have to be there for half-price real ice cream shakes and ice cream slushes.
And half-price floats. I have to have those.
Well, you can't have them all for yourself. Haven't you heard of sharing?
Of course I have. Want to head to Sonic after we ride the half-pipe?
You know it. I'll see you there in half an hour.
You have to stop by Sonic Nights after 8 p.m. for half-price real ice cream slushes, shakes, and floats. This is how you Sonic. For limited time only, participating Sonic drive-ins.
Night Callers Bigfoot Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. Today is April 8th, 2018, and you have your hosts here, Lori Hood and Lauren Smith. Oh my. Oh,
wow.
As bad as I almost said Lauren Hood, so I don't even know my own name tonight, y'all. It's been a day. All right. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Actually, we're coming up on our 2-year wedding anniversary, and my last name is now Hood, for those that, for Lauren, who apparently doesn't know. The 17th will be 2 years. It seems like it's been longer, though, doesn't it? Because, we've known each other for years. So, anyway, yeah, it's kind of exciting that that's coming up. Yeah, I'm glad you're through filing your fingernails when we were waiting for the show to start.
Yeah, I'm done. Thanks.
I said,
calling me out on that.
Who is sawing over there? Oh, my goodness. It seemed like we were sawing a log. Well, anyway, you had to be there. It was funny.
These earbuds that I have, they pick up on every little noise there ever was. It is ridiculous.
Oh my goodness. Well, I want you to know that it sounded like you were sawing your arm off instead of filing your nails. It was really bad. Oh,
I won't do that anymore. We're live. I'll keep it quiet over here.
Yes. Good. Well, great. I do have a little bit of Bigfoot news. Every morning I get up and I go sit out on the porch and have a cup of coffee and everything before I take a shower, get ready to go to work. Most of the time all I hear is owls, or I might hear some coyotes. But the other morning I heard a Bigfoot, and it was way off in the distance to the east, and it was a glorified Bigfoot howl, the oh, just like that, way off. I mean, it was a goodish way off, but I could hear it. I thought, oh my God, that is just awesome, because I have not heard that ever around here. Now, we've had other stuff, but I haven't heard a vocalization like that, in probably 18 years. 20 years at least. So I was very excited about hearing that. Now I know where I'm going to go put my recorder and know which direction to go, but I think it was coming from the lake. So it was a good way off, but it was very exciting to hear that, and there was no mistaking That's exactly what it was. I can't think of anything else that would have that sound. Of course, it was way better than my rendition.
Really? I thought you were pretty spot on there.
Well, I was trying to imitate it the best I could, but, it was definitely very strong. Did the howl 3 or 4 times. And it appeared to be moving because it started out strong and then it got a little lighter each time. So it was either turning its head as it was vocalizing or it was moving away. But it was absolutely made my week, as you can well imagine.
Definitely.
I just wanted to share another little thing, something I had never seen before. I had some scraps from Sunday dinner, and I didn't want to throw them in the trash. And so I just flung them off the porch out into the yard. Well, I went out, and I saw a raccoon out there eating those scraps. And then here comes a possum, and it's wanting some of those scraps, and they're about a foot apart from each other. And if they moved in just a little bit, they would go. They would hit each other. I thought that was. I could never imagine that a raccoon and a possum could get so close to each other like that. I would have thought they were, that they were
lifelong enemies.
Yes, definitely. But anyway, enough of Booger Hill antics. Tonight we've got a wonderful guest, a former police officer by the name of Brian Gosselin. He's from New York, and he has a new book out that he and his wife wrote. Sue is her name, Sue Gosselin. Anyway, he's going to come on and he's going to tell us about his face-to-face encounter with a Bigfoot, and this is what inspired his new book. So without further ado, let's bring on Brian. And Lauren, I'm going to let you take it away. Come on, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. And how are you guys doing?
Good. We're doing great. We're glad to have you on tonight. I'm really excited to hear about your encounter and about how that encounter has changed your life and led you to do what you do now.
Well, that's a long, drawn-out story, but...
well, thank goodness we have time.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
It's a lengthy story to start with, but let's say back in the 70s, I was a police officer in a local village where I was a police officer. My father was a sergeant there, and I was operating the radar. I dare say it was around 1 o'clock in the morning, and I watched this one intersection, but I heard this vehicle coming hell-bent for leather, and it was a slow night, and I said, here comes something to do. And unbeknown to me, it was my brother and a friend of his, Marty Paddock. Marty Paddock was driving the truck, and they pulled right in next to the police car. And I says, what's going on, guys? I said, why are you driving like this? And these guys are so wound up. And, oh, my God. And my brother Paul, he's going, Brian, he said, you want to see a monster? He said, oh, my God. He said, we thought they're rambling and hollering and screaming. He said, I said, whoa, wait, slow down. I said, I can't even understand half of what you're saying. You're both talking at the same time. And I could tell, because I looked at him, I said, you smoking a little funny tobacco and having a few beers? He said, no, honest to God. He said, right out there by Stevens. That would be the Abair Road. That's where they used to live, the Stevens family. And he says, honest to God, he said, we thought it was a woman being raped or whatever and blah, 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 but they had an encounter and they took off like hell-bent for leather coming into the village to find me. I was the closest police agency around. So my dad had just gone off duty, and I told the guy, I said, I can't leave the village. I said, I'm not in pursuit or nothing. I just can't just leave the village. I said, well, I called my dad. My dad, his job was just getting home. And I told him what had happened. He said, Brian, he said, call the troopers, call the sheriffs, send them out there, because where I live now, let alone my dad lived right next door, we're only 6 minutes if you're driving fast from the spot where this all happened. And I wasn't out there that night, but the troopers, 2 New York State troopers, 2 Washington County deputy sheriffs, and I can't use their names, and my dad and my brother Paul and Marty Paddock, and it was either Bart or Brett Kinney, they were twins. They were all looking at the same exact thing at the same exact time. It was way good distance out in the meadow, went down a valley up the other side and stepped over a fence that was roughly 4.5 feet high. Just stepped over it like you and I would walk over a donut on the floor, put it that way. And
right.
And then I talked to my dad the next day, and he was so in shock, so on and so forth. But he told me, he says, Brian, he says, there's something out there that don't belong here. Blah, blah, blah. That's all I know about the first night. The next night, it was a Tuesday night, and it was, like I said, it was in August, late August, and it was one of those nights that was just muggy, hot, and where this incident happened was out on Abair Road, and it's all farmland, and it's dead. When I got out there, a state trooper had asked me, he said, hey, Brian, he said, you're off duty. He said, you want to go out with me? And we call him Mr. Fox is who we called him. We can't use his real name. But he'd been a trooper, a New York State trooper for a long time. This guy was built like a grizzly bear. And he said, well, he said, I'm going to go up on the top of the hill. He said, and park out in the field. This is a field that had been mowed by the farmers. It was like a lawn, over a little bit of an overgrown lawn, maybe 5-6 inches of grass. And I said, well, I'm going to go down the bottom of the hill, because you got to try to picture it. We were on a hill, but it was like a real sharp S-turn at the top. He was at the top, I was at the bottom. We were roughly 1,000 feet apart, and he's barely off the road, maybe 50 feet. Well, I drove out into the meadow that hadn't been cut all year. Why they let it go, I don't know. But I drove out in the meadow, good 350 feet out into the meadow. And the first thing I did when I got out of the car was take my dome light out and open my door and just sat there and listened. And we're talking back and forth once in a great while on the CB radio. And then we had a channel that wasn't all hubbub, And for a good 20 minutes, off in a distance from me to the hedgerow was probably 750, 800 feet. And above that is where the trooper was, on the other side of the hedgerow. But this all comes from what we call the Amazon. It's like real backwoods. It's oblivion. There's put it this, one house in 7 miles. And it's all swamp, heavy, thick woods with a river running down through. It's just like being in the Amazon. I kid you. All narrow dirt roads that flood every year and blah, blah, blah. Well, we started hearing what sounded like trees breaking, not dead wood, but small trees being just grabbed, snap. Not like deadwood sounds, but like live trees. And we were talking back and forth on the radio, and Jim said, you hear that? I said, yeah, I can hear it. I can hear it. So another 15, 20 minutes goes by, and all of a sudden, all I hear is the trooper. He goes, Brian, what the blank is it? I'm getting the hell out of here. And he did. He'd come out of that field and blew by me like hell bent for leather. He was gone.
Oh, my gosh.
He was gone.
He just left you?
He just left me. And I'm sitting out in the field, and I said, every once in a while, I'm scanning the field with a spotlight, a very powerful spotlight. And I started hearing noises like the way I've always described it is somebody wearing corduroy pants and their thighs rubbing together. It would start and stop, and I'd hit the field with my spotlight, and I don't see anything. And I'd turn it off, and I could hear something. Not by then, because I know Jim, Mr. Fox, had seen something, or is he putting me on, blah, blah, blah. And the noise was getting closer. And right through the middle of the field I'm in, there's a low spot. I'm on the high spot. And I might be 30 feet higher than the lower part of the field. And through it runs a little teeny-weeny brook with a handful of cattails here and there. I could hear and I knew what those were because I got cattails in front of my house, and I go down through there hunting. And I said, them are the cattails. And I hit the light. I don't see anything. Well, unbeknown to me, it's coming up the hill, and I'm looking in the field. It's already actually out in front of me, but off a distance. So I just sat there for a few minutes, and that whooshing noise started again. I said, "Oh my God, it's getting close!" And by then, I had goosebumps galore, and I'm getting. I went out as a skeptic, but I know there's something there that don't belong there. And next thing I know, something says, "Just turn the spotlight on," right off the right-hand corner of the front of my car at 30 feet. And when I hit it with the spotlight, turned it on, hit it with the spotlight, all I can remember is this creature, 7.5 foot tall, maybe a little taller, 400 plus pounds, covered with a dark reddish black hair, brought its hands up, not paws, hands. And it brought them up and covered half, 3/4 of its face, and its fingers were spread apart a smidgen because that's how I could tell the eyes were a red color, but they didn't glow like a deer's eyes or any other animal. The only animal I know of that's got red eyes is a rabbit. They do have red eyes at night with a light. But anyway, I could see through the fingers the eyes were red, and this thing let out such a deep, deep, guttural holler. Not a screech, but a holler-like thing. And it would take three men's lung capacity to just to get that volume, let alone the longevity of the blast. And it was just like you blowing a tuba in my face at point-blank range. I could feel, honest to God, I could feel, I guess, reverberation, or whatever you call it. I could feel it. And it just went through me. And I'm sitting here, I'm getting the heebie-jeebies and shaking like a leaf again. And this thing turns to its left. And that's when I noticed that on the arm, it was hanging, like the hair was hanging like on an orangutan. It was hanging down off the arms. Not the length of the arm, but, because it turned around, it had its arm sort of like the letter L. And you could see the hair hanging, and that's when I could see the back. I could see the butt. The back, the hair was sort of like from the rib cage to the spine, and it was a lot thinner. And I could see, like, clay, because down that area it's full of clay, a lot of clay. And I could see twigs, I could see leaves, like it had been nesting or laying someplace. You got to realize this is the night after everybody else had seen this thing. And I went out as a skeptic, not expecting to see anything. But here it is in front of me. But when I saw what I saw, when they say your light flashing before your eyes, God is my witness, it did. I had thoughts from my childhood. Everything I'd been through in my life was an instant thought. And the thing with this, I didn't. I have a cold, so pardon me.
It's okay.
I had a bazillion thoughts in my head that, do I shoot it? I got the guns in my hand, the hammer's pulled back, it's a 357 mag, and it's 30 feet away. There's no way I could have missed it, let alone to start with. But I don't know if it's telepathy or what it is. It's just like I got the feeling I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to, and that's probably the only reason I didn't shoot. I'm looking at something that don't exist. They're standing in front of me. What the hell am I looking at? Is it a man in a monkey suit? What is it? Where'd it come from? All these things are going through your head in a split second. But when it turned and started walking away, all I did was stand outside my car and watch this thing walk at least 1,000 feet, maybe more, into where the field I'm in, where the top hedgerow and the bottom hedgerow come together, and two fences are there, and there's a gateway down that other end. And it's an old log road from years ago when they logged it. And when it got to the end of that field, it turned around and let out three more of those great big guttural blasts. And I got the impression the first time it hollered at me was out of fear. And when it got down the other end, it was more or less, leave us the hell alone. That's the impression I got. And I sat in that car for a good at least 20 minutes, just trying to gather my thoughts, get my mind back to where it's supposed to be. And when I left, I went back to Whitehall, and this trooper was sitting at the Silver Diner, which don't even exist there anymore, but we had a place out the back where the cops would sit. And I walked in, I looked at him, and he's got a cup of coffee, and he's got it on the table in front of him, and he's shaking like a leaf. Now, you got to realize half an hour, 45 minutes has gone by since he left, at least. And he just looks up at me, and I says, Mr. Fox, what did you see? I didn't see nothing. Mr. Fox, what did you see? I didn't see nothing. I said, why the hell did you leave me out there alone? He just looked at me, hung his head down, and said, I didn't see nothing. And that's the last time I ever spoke to that man, because he retired shortly after, and so on and so forth. But
he never came clean?
No, I've talked to another trooper that was there that night, and these guys are all retired now, and they still won't talk about it.
Gotcha.
But I've had so many. Well, anyway, we had all kinds of hubbub and bullshit thrown in our face, making fun of us. You name it. You know, you got to realize it's back in the 70s. It wasn't 2018.
Right.
And if they'd have put half the amount of time into a thorough investigation back then, as they do with any legitimate thing now, you know, there definitely would be positive evidence. But Bill Brand, we have our own Sasquatch group. It's called Northern Sasquatch Research Society, and we got a website, so on and so forth. And Bill Brand, he's the one that did the full, thorough investigation of that whole incident. And we've got records galore. We got statements. Everything's on tape. And the reason my wife and I sat down and wrote another book, Lauren, is that we wrote another book. We wrote a book is because Animal Planet, MonsterQuest did a fabulous job. Seth Breedlove, who came up a year or so ago and did a movie with just me about the whole incident. He did a good job, a very good job. And Dr. Bendenagel, God rest his soul, he passed away a handful of months ago, and he was part of our group. And he's out of Canada, and he told me, he says, Brian, he says, when he did the movie, he said, you know, I could sit here and listen to you tell that story over and over, and he said, it would never get old to me. Because when he did the movie, he's actually got enough left in what they call enough left in the can. He could do another movie out of that same ordeal. But we had reporters. I had to throw reporters out of my house. I had to have my phone number changed. I was getting prank calls. I've done other talk shows, and with the call-ins, like I'd be on the line like I am now, and people would be calling in, asking me questions. Hey, man, what the hell were you smoking? I want some of that. You know, this kind of. And I kept my mouth shut for so many years. And then Bill, we formed a group, and things started coming out. So in fact, that's how I met my wife. Sue she was part of our Bigfoot group. But we finally sat down, and because they've taken. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Go ahead. I'll get to that in a minute.
Well, there's been so much done about this story. They've had me in one movie. It looks like I was a 1930s police officer. They've had me as chief of police. They've had me as a sergeant. They've had me as a deputy sheriff. They show the cops blowing out into the field with spotlights, red lights blaring, and the sirens blaring. Never happened. The more we watched these things, the more angry we became. So we sat sat down. It took my wife and I 6-7 months to write this book, and everybody has read it has come back and told us how well written it was, so on and so forth. But it's just my incident, not the night before. And half these things I've seen, I swear to God, I wasn't even part of it, just like I wasn't even there. And we just got so disgusted, and people were, how do you call it, reaping the harvest. You know what I'm saying? And there's people out there that were children at the time that are the go-to guys in my own community about this whole incident. They don't come to me. They go to this guy.
Right.
And all he did was read.
You said you were 26 at the time. I mean, And you still live in that community, or whereabouts?
I bought a house out in the country. I'm out here. I told you, I'm only about, if I want to drive a little bit fast, I can be out there to Abair Road in 5 minutes. Now, right where the whole incident happened. And I've had a couple of close encounters just in the last year myself right out here in this neck of the woods. But we keep things pretty much to ourselves because we don't want all the boneheads coming out where they're I don't even want to get into that part of it.
Definitely not. So after your encounter, you went and talked to Mr. Fox. Did you come out and ask questions or tell people about that, or did it just kind of get around after all the other officers had seen everything?
Well, it got around.
I mean,
because
did you publicly come out and
no,
say
I
that
did
you
not.
saw this?
But it was all written in the police ledger, and that book don't even exist.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knows whatever happened to it. The whole ordeal, all the troopers' names, everybody. I had everything. I wrote it up as a complete file, and it was in the police bladder.
Mm-hmm.
And that book don't even exist anymore. It's still supposed to be on record because of tickets and arrests from way back when. And we've had a good friend of mine who was chief of police there for 9, 10 years, 12 years. He said, Brian, I've turned this village upside down trying to find that. I said, well, somebody's got it, because they took the whole book. But I did not come out publicly, only to my brother. My brother Paulie's passed away, and Marty Paddock. We all talked among ourselves. That's how and why Bill Brand got involved, because he had everything. He interviewed everybody that was even involved in that thing, and they're all on tape except for the troopers and the sheriffs. And it just got completely out of control with people trying to make money on it, make it look like they were part of it, and right. I had one guy, and I got him. I guess you could say I got even with him. He's one of the guys who used to be one of the main guys making fun of me, my brother, the family, to put it that way. And it was just 4 or 5 years ago. They have a Bigfoot festival here in Whitehall now every year. My wife and I have been going down, and Bill Brand, other members of our group, we set up a table and we discuss incidents and investigations we've been on. That would make your hair curl. Some of the investigations we've been on too. But and this one guy was, like I said, he was one of these guys that make all kinds of fun. He still does to this day until I straighten him out. Him and another guy were sitting there, and he's a good whittler. He's a hell of a painter, artist. And he's got pictures of Sasquatch, what he thought it would look like. He's got whittled little Sasquatches and things with Sasquatch carved in them. And there was a man and a woman in front of me and my girlfriend at the time. And he's telling them how much the price is and all that stuff. And they were looking at it, and they were really, really interested in buying something. So I looked over and said, hey, Eric, how you doing? All right, Brian. I go, yeah, it's pretty good. I look at those people. I said, here's a guy who's done nothing but make fun of me and my incident with Bigfoot and about Bigfoot, like he does everybody. And I said, here he is trying to make money off it. They looked at me, they looked at him, put the stuff down, and walked away. He said, don't you ever do that to me again. I says, payback, son of a gun, yeah. But this is one of the kind of things, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Coming out, or your story getting out like that, I'm sure, obviously it changed your life. So I had a question. I'm reading your bio, and it says that you go and you investigate, but you also take in witness accounts, and because you want to help people who have seen this thing or something like it, so obviously they don't feel crazy, they feel listened to. So what made you could have easily, just gone and hid in the woods and just let this ruin your life, or let it turn you into a hermit and not want to help anybody, but you chose to go help people. So what made you want to do that?
Because I know what I went through, and I saw what my family was going through, and point blank, I come from a very poor family. It was 10 kids. I'm a triplet. My mother had twins, and there were 10 kids all together. I come from a poor family. We were always harassed, made fun of, so on and so forth. And my dad became a police officer, and I always wanted to be a police officer and a firefighter anyway, which I was. But it's just, to this day, I'll give you an instance here shortly, but, it's like, it would be like you and your mom having a UFO land in your front yard. You got pictures of it. You've got all kinds of evidence of it. And next thing you know, you're crazy, you're nuts. I mean, the men in black would show up, and they'd try to brainwash you, so on and so forth, and all that happy hubbub that they do. And I know how I felt, and it just ruined my life in a sense of my own well-being in my mind, I guess you could say. because it played games with my mind for quite some time with the nightmares, reliving it over and over again, and then thinking, you know, was it a real creature? Was it an alien? And I had one guy, I probably can't legally use his name, but right in front of me and my wife, who's, you see him on 99% of the shows you see about Sasquatch, this guy, and he's from Maine. I can say that part of it. He's got a little museum up there. And when I first met him, my wife said, let's go down to his museum and see what it's all about. You walk through the door, and there's the Gigantopithecus. Big stuffed thing. That thing's freaking huge. You go into his museum, which to me is a running gag. But anyway, my wife introduced me to him and says, you know who this is? And he says, no. He said, introduced me and says, this is Brian Gosselin. He had the close encounter with Bigfoot, 30 feet, blah, blah, blah. Really? Would you like to hear his story? Sure I would. So instead of staying in the museum, because there was only 3 people in the place, we go out on the main street, right in an intersection. And as I'm trying to tell him my story, he's walking away from me 4 feet this way. Say, hey, George, how you doing? Walking 6, 7 feet. Hi, Mary, how you doing today? And I point blank, I'm going to say it anyway. I turned right around and looked at him and said, you are a freaking asshole. And he looked at me and he says, well, as far as I'm concerned, anybody that says they saw a Bigfoot ought to be seeing me on my other job. And I said, what's that? He's a psychologist. I looked at him and I said, really? My wife just shook her head. She said, what an idiot. And then when we got back to Whitehall from our vacation, we were telling Bill about it. He said, I told you he was a bonehead. He said, I told you not to get involved. But you see him on all these shows talking about Bigfoot and evidence and all this stuff. And I said, what a fake. What a phony. And that's one of the things that burns my behind. The same guy that's telling you you're nuts is on a TV show talking about how crazy you are, but he's not. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. I know it.
But I to this day, I just had we did the Johnstown sportsman show. We went out there and sold books because they asked us to come out every year because people actually come up to meet me and hear the story and blah, 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 blah. And this young girl, she was only 12, had an encounter. Well, it's closer to you than it is to me. I can't remember. It wasn't Arkansas. But anyway, she had an encounter. And she saw the book and she saw the cover of it and she shied away. She just turned her head. And her father looked at her and says, what's the matter? She said, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. And then he bent over and he says, she's had an encounter and she has yet to talk to anybody about it. I said, really? So I got her off to the side a little bit and I says, I won't even use her name, but I says, you're a young lady. And I says, the point being, I said, I was a young man. I said, older than you, but I said, when I had my encounter, and I said, I was very, very close to it. I said, I was afraid. I was scared. But I said, not like a boogeyman, kind of scared and afraid. And I said, I'm looking at something that don't exist, and yet there it is. I said, I'd never seen one before in my life. I said, if I see another one, I will consider myself fortunate now, because in the beginning, I said I consider myself fortunate. Then I consider myself like somebody put a hex on me or something, you know. And I said, if you want to talk anytime, I gave her my card with my home phone and my cell phone on it. And I said, you ever want to talk about this? I said, how about writing down on a piece of paper? Well, no. And she just walked away. And I felt so bad for her because that's how I felt. Even though I was a young adult, that's how I felt. Was just what she was going through right there. And it was there every day, you know. Like I said, I had to have my phone number changed and everything else because I was getting the hecklers and I was getting people from here and there calling. There were some serious inquiries, but most of them wanted to make fun of us. So I said, the hell with it, no more. I'm just keeping my mouth shut. And everybody called, is this the Brian? No, wasn't me. Must be another one somewhere. But it's just the games that they play. And to this day, they still play games. I mean, the hoaxes and whatnot. I'll mention another group that I'm quite sure you're affiliated with. And right after all this stuff happened up in Whitehall, they were the same ones involved with the the freezer case down south, down your neck of the woods, with the suit there, stuffed with animal guts and stuff, and stuck in a freezer, and they paid $50,000 for it. And but anyway, you know what I'm talking about? Well, they were charging. They were going down and bringing people up here on buses, small buses, charging them large amounts of money per person to go out there on Abair Road, and they were going to go out and find a Bigfoot. And they've already paid me, say, $100 to go sit in the woods. So when we tree knock and or hoot, give us a few seconds, you hoot and tree knock back. And there's one right there. They were doing this for a while, and it gives people like the people that are in my group and other groups that are into this to prove a bad name. And it makes us look like fools. But then we know in our hearts, we're doing it for the right reason. These guys are into it for money.
Right.
That's all there is. That's all there is to it. And they make it up as they go along.
That's just so sad. It's just really so sad, that I hate the people who give this a bad name. Yeah,
there is a lot of them out there too that do it, and they don't care. They don't care. They're making money at it, so who the hell cares? But I've had some real good investigators come up. Who was the first one? A guy from California. This was like about a month after he came right to my house, and would you talk to me? And I never heard about him from him again. And we did one with Doug Hychek, and that first movie they made, that was like watching a cartoon being made. I was so disgusted with that one. It was on freaking real. It was just, I was there. I was part of it. And it was like watching a cartoon being made. And I had the original place where this all happened set up with the farmers so we could go out there and do the... Oh, no. They stayed right on the very outskirts of Whitehall and did it down there. Like they were in the swamp. The guy, oh, I'm lost in the swamp. Yeah, it's about 20 feet long and 15 feet wide, and there was a road through the middle of it. But he's lost in a swamp. Like I said, I watched this movie being made, and what you see happen and what comes out on film is quite a hoot, actually. I said, oh, well.
Doesn't match up at all. So have you had more good feedback since your book launched?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
we've
not
done...
to make up for all the bad feedback you've had and bad experiences you've had, but...
No, we still do a lot of investigation, but we have the worst rating we've had so far is 4.5 out of 5 stars. And the only reason was they said it wasn't long enough. Everybody else is thumbs up. I said, this is great. We're in the process of writing another book right now anyway. It'll go from the very end of that onwards to all these investigations we've been on and investigations that we do, because we have, myself, I have found 1, 2, 3, 5. I've got 5 casts, and I got, and thanks to Bill Brand, it got broke. I got one of the only casts because of the way the thing was walking in this a dried up creek bed. Right now, this time of the year, it's running really good like a brook. But in the summertime, it dries up, and it's just a black, moist mud, dirt mud. And the way it had stepped over a root, and its foot went into the ground, and it came up, and when it rolled forward, and I said, geez, this looks like a heel. So I hollered to Bill, and I hollered to my wife. I said, you want to come down? I said, pretty sure I found a track, and it's in a real dense hemlock grove. And in fact, we'd gotten a cast out of there 3 months prior to that, a real nice cast. And we never knew this until I had to cut the root. It had stepped over a root, and the front part of its foot had went into the ground, and being bipedal, when it rolled forward, the foot came out. Well, when I took the cast, I cut the root, we pulled it backwards and flipped it over. I had the toenails. And that's one of the things that Dr. Bendenagel was so enthused about. He says, this is the only track I've ever seen with toenails, because all you normally get is the bottom of the foot. I had the top part of the front of the foot in this cast. And it got broke. It's still good enough to see the toes, but it got broken in half. I said, oh, my God, Bill. But anyway, he had it in a suitcase all packed. Well, he knocked it off the table. When it hit the floor, it broke. And in that same area, believe this one or not, this was 4, 5, 6 years ago. We were so close. They had the smell. I didn't smell it because I was downstream a ways. All I heard them do was holler, come up and look at this. They got there, and I was 20 seconds or so down, and I come bombing up through, and the water in the same area was still running into the track. That's how close we were to this thing.
Oh, wow.
And that's the day we found the 3 trees, one after another, going up this steep bank. They were probably the diameter of a baseball. 2 of them were maple trees, and one was a young oak. Diameter snapped right over. Just like you grabbed it and snapped it over. They were live trees. They weren't dead. You could tell something went up through there because of the way you could just look up through, and something heavy had gone up this thing. But we've got pictures that, we don't publish everything, because if people were looking for pictures in our book too. But no, this we're no pictures. This is just what happened out there. And I'd have given that for a cell phone back there to, everybody has a cell phone on them now. You got a camera on it. But I've had troopers, a Vermont state trooper come to me about a Bigfoot sighting right here by my house, little William Miller Chapel. He said, all I know, he said this thing was 7 foot plus right across the road in front of me, because if you come from Fairhaven, Vermont, go past my house, 2.5 miles down the road, you go back into the state of Vermont, over by the Abair Road. And he was answering a call over there, and that's when he saw this thing. And I've had a trooper come up to me this June will be 3 years, and he's from down around New York City. He got shipped up here, and him and his partner both had a sighting. Just barely north of Whitehall on Route 22. Well, we get a lot of reports there, but there's a migration route. What we call it a migration route, but because they'll start here, you'll end up there, you'll end up in the Adirondacks, and then you end up here and there, and blah blah blah. But where do they go? Everybody asks me, where do they go? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I sometimes think maybe they do come from upstairs, and when I say that, I mean up in the clouds. Who the hell knows? I mean, there has been sightings in the winter. There has been sightings, not in my book. I've never seen any evidence of it. And right here on my deck last year, it was in September. No, excuse me, end of August, just this past year. My wife works at the hospital in Rutland, Vermont, and I don't smoke in my house. I go outside. And I'm sitting out on the deck. It was 9:30, 25 minutes to 10, and up behind my sister-in-law's house, I heard, and the closest thing, I don't know if you've ever heard the Sierra tapes or not, but they have what sounds, okay. You ever hear that when it sounds like monkey chatter?
Yeah,
I
know which one you're talking about.
Well, I heard that, and I described it more like 2 chickens up in a tree fighting. That's what I heard up behind my sister-in-law's house. And my next-door neighbor has got 3 little dogs and 2 big dogs. And one of them is a Mastiff, 165-pound Mastiff. And these dogs went crazy. And all I heard was, shut up. And that was it. Nothing else. The next night, it was still 9:15, 9:30, somewhere around there. I heard the most perfect WHOOOOP 2 times in a row that you'd ever heard in your life. I said, holy love of God. So I run in the house, and I grab my cell phone because it's got a real good recorder on it. I turn it on. I set it on the railing. I said, come on, do it again. Nothing. Not a damn thing. So then I started hearing all kinds of racket. Where I live, I'm sitting in my kitchen right now, and in two minutes I can walk out of here and be right at the base of a small mountain right here. And I could hear all kinds of racket. I said, what the hell's going on? So I grabbed my handgun, jumped in my truck, went up the road a little ways, and the deer were coming off the mountain like the woods were on fire, put it that way. There's 8, 10, 12 deer come off that mountain. They could care less if I was there or not, and right out into the field, and they all stopped, turned around, and they're not looking at me. They're looking back at the woods. So I went up to the ladies on the hill in her driveway, turned around, shut my lights off. I got my spotlight and everything, and I'm at a perfect angle so I could see anything comes out. Nothing come out. I said, I'll be damned. But I told my wife, she said, you always hear all the good stuff when I'm at work. I said, I'm sorry. But it was the best vocalization, personally, outside the encounter I had, was the best freaking thing I've ever heard in my life. But we know they're still here. We get reports. You say, well, like in your neck of the woods, we probably debunk 9 out of 10 reports. Because there's certain things we look for, and I'm a pretty good judge of character. I can stare you in the eyes and let you know if I'm, you're telling me the truth. And I've had so many people stare me right square in the eyes. You trying to find out if I'm telling the truth or not? I said, after 3 lie detector tests and everybody's passed them, what are you going to find? But
right. How long were you a police officer after you had your sighting?
After I had my sighting, not a hell of a long time, to be honest with you. To be honest with you.
Figured that.
No, because we were told to shut up, number one. We were told to shut up. And after that, Dan Gordon, God rest his soul, he was part of our group, but he had an encounter, him and another police officer, 10 years after mine, in a straight line, say 4 or 5 miles, but it was out South Bay, like I just told you, north of Whitehall on Route 22. He got out of the car, went and spotlighted it right in the ditch or in the bank, going up the side of this ledge. And he says, Brian, he just told me this shortly before he passed away. He says, all these years, I thought you were crazy, crazier than shit off the slough. He goes, but he said, after my encounter, he said, God bless you. I said, well, how's it feel? How's it feel, Dan? I said, it makes you feel warm and fuzzy all over, don't it? But we had several sightings down there because of the set of railroad tracks that run north down through there. Kids that spotted them on the railroad tracks ran home to their parents screaming and crying what they'd just seen. We found evidence, but we didn't see anything else.
Well, it's a life-changing experience.
Yes, it is.
Because you see something that isn't supposed to be there.
Uh-huh. Yeah, like I said, the first thing I'm sitting there looking at something that don't exist, and yet there it is staring at you, and you're staring at it. And it's moving. And, the thing of it is, I'm a country-bred boy. I have been. I've hunted since I was, 12 years old. And we do have bears here now. We haven't had bears in years and years and years, but we have bears here now. We have mountain lions here now. But the point being, all us hunters that see them have got them on our night vision cameras and stuff for deer hunting, got mountain lions on them, trying to tell us it's a house cat. It's just that it's too close to the camera. Say, come on. And you show me a bear that's got legs that are 6.5, 7 feet long. That's one thing. How can you guesstimate the height? I said, well, I'm 6'1". When I got out of the car, the grass was up to my hips. I said, when it was standing there in front of me, it was up to its knees. I said, there's another 2.5 feet on top of 6, or a 1.5 on top of 6. Don't tell me. The grass was the same height in the whole field. So we did find tracks a couple days later. We got one cast, and there's another man that was into it big time. He was the deputy sheriff. That was Glenn LaRose. He gave all his casts to a guy here in Whitehall who's one of the kids that's now the go-to guy in Whitehall. He got a lot of stuff handed to him, and now he's a professional. So.
I heard you talking about that earlier, and, that has always gotten me, too, is how some people will take a subject and make a career out of it and really have never had an encounter, don't know what they're talking about, and they're really in it for what they can get out of it and not for the science of it or the knowledge that you can learn from it. It's people like that. Well, God bless them. Good luck to them. But it's people like you and other researchers out there that are getting out there, boots on the ground, that have brought more to the understanding of what these are and how they inhabit our same environment. If it's them. It's you and them that have really made the difference.
The thing of it is, these things don't go back just to the 70s. These things have been around for hundreds of years. They're documented on walls, the Indians, the whole 9 yards. In fact, one of the casts we had, when Seth Breedlove after he did the movie and stuff, he had a thing at the Whitehall Armory here in Whitehall. And I'll go show you this will make a good point about how interested the Whitehall community was really involved. I mean, even your forefathers and your trustees and stuff have brought all these people in, and 90% of the people that came here for that showing of the movie, me talking, and so on and so forth, were from Maryland, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, not Whitehall. I only saw 4 people in this whole the whole armory that I recognized. And that right there really blew my mind. That blew my mind. And there's so much in Whitehall now that's trying to make a few bucks about Bigfoot stuff. But for something like this, they couldn't be bothered to come out. But anyway, there was I don't think he wasn't an Apache, a Cherokee, but he was a shaman anyway. And he come up to the table, and he's looking at me, and he looks at me, and he says, "You're the guy that had the encounter." And I'd never met this guy before, and he probably just guessed right because the table says Northern Sasquatch, blah, blah. Anyway, we had some cast. He put his hand down on the cast, and he says, "This is a female. This cast is from a female. And she wants you to know that they're here to help us. But they don't like being bothered." And he looked at me and winked, and he walked away. And my wife is a psychic medium. So, boing, right out the door, she went right behind him. She talked to him for a good hour outside. And she come in with a lot more information. But he's a true blue shaman, and he says he knows what he's talking about. So he's been around a few other shows since then. I said,
I'm curious to know, what are they here to help us with?
I don't know. I scratched my head on that too. I mean, here we actually got a law up here protecting them in this neck of the woods. You cannot kill a Bigfoot if you see one. Oh, that's
great.
But they have $1 million bounty on a Sasquatch. You kill one, you get $1 million.
What?
Oh yeah. There's $1 million reward out there for the body of a Sasquatch. There's actually been, I've watched it on different TV shows. This one guy supposedly shot one and didn't want to. This is out west someplace. Shot it, killed it, put it in a pile. Then there was a young one hiding in the bushes. So shot and killed that one too. Put them on top of each other and burned them. I said, really? Did you take anybody? I'm thinking to myself watching the show. Well, there's still DNA in the bones and stuff. Whatever. Oh, they went back and the bones and everything were all gone. Personally, I think if they do die, I imagine. I think they bury their own. I really do. I think they bury their own. But there's so
I've always
much.
wondered about that too.
Yeah. I do.
A lot of
think
these, but they have found bones in riverbeds and stuff like that, and I've always wondered if they didn't stick them up. You know how a lot of these rivers and creeks will have hollow places up under the water, but up inside the bank there.
Oh, yeah. And
I've often wondered if they didn't put their dead there.
It's crazy. People in this day and age, this is 2018 compared to, like, my mom, this was just a handful of months after this whole incident. My mom was into this big time because of my dad. My mom was a very open-minded person. She was a very bright lady anyway. But the point being, she said, "Brian, let me put it to you like this. When I was a kid," said, all we had that we could do was read comic books. And she said, we had comic books of Dick Tracy talking into his wristwatch. He had things he held up to his mouth and spoke in. And she looks at me and says, "Been there, done that." And she said, and this is 1976. She says, what we think is unbelievable today, next month will be been there, done that. And look at the technology. Just look at the technology since then. I mean, they're looking from outer space with the Hubble camera, looking down and finding buried cities under the ocean. I was watching that program the other night. They could actually read the date of a dime on the street in New York City. If you put a dime on the street, they can read the date on that dime. You think you're secure? You think you're secure? You got no. Yeah. Well, it's all true. Like she said, it's been there, done that.
I wonder if they've ever seen a Bigfoot. I'm sure they have, and
well, I'm quite sure. It's just like all the UFO stuff. It's all tied in together, as far as I'm concerned. And that's my belief, because I'm going to bring this up. I know it's getting close to the end, but prior to all of this that happened in 1976, we had, and I'm not talking just a little teeny weeny town of Whitehall. I'm talking from north of New York City, clear up in the tip of Maine. UFO report after UFO report after UFO. Every police agency was getting UFO reports. It was on the radio every night. every night. You could look up in the sky at almost any given time and see something you just can't explain. And then within 2-3 weeks, all this stuff started happening. So, and like Bill, he's the head of our group. He don't like to hear that, but I did Don Keating's show out there in Ohio 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
And he brought it up. I said, thank you very much for bringing that up. Let me tell you how it happened. He says, you sound a little excited. I said, yeah, because they don't like to hear it. But now on a lot of these programs that you watch about Bigfoot stuff, that they're starting to tie one in with the other. They actually are trying to tie, or are starting to tie one in with the other. They'll have a report. Not like now. I live in the Northeast, way up in the Northeast. And we are in one of the hot spots for UFOs, I guess you can say. And whenever we see something we just totally can't explain, first thing I do, and I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll call Bill Brand, log it in your book. And usually within a week we'll have a report somewhere in the vicinity. And that's the truth. I'm not pulling no pranks or nothing. That's the truth. So my wife, she well, that's true. And my wife has even become open-minded when it comes to that. I said, well, think about it. I said, you can sit down and look at a lot of these reports and the things. And she used to live in a small city southwest of me. And she's used to all the city lights. Well, out here, she has seen some things that should make her hair stand up on ends. And I said, you just look. We got a good-sized hill we can go park on. And what I say, we're out in the country. And when there's thunder, lightning storms, I can look, at least 15, 20 miles to the northeast, and there's nothing in the way until you get to the big mountains where they do all their skiing and stuff, and look to the south. And some of the things you see at night, I mean, we know because I got a beautiful telescope. I got beautiful Nikon binoculars, and you can tell what a satellite is. You can tell. But when things come to a dead stop in the middle of the sky, and another one comes from this way or that way and stops, and then they both take off together, what's that tell you? What if we got that does that? Have we got something that does that?
I don't think we do. That's usually a UFO, unidentified flying object.
Yeah, well, we'll all know after we're dead and gone what's what. But until then, you deal with it the way it comes, I guess.
Exactly.
But I do
that
know
is
there's
interesting, though.
Oh, it is. It's like I say, we do our homework more ways than one. Well, we get a lot of good reports when we do these like after this talk show and stuff. Well, I did this is called a pod or something like that, right? Or whatever. I did the one.
Podcast, yes.
Yeah, I did one out for I can't think of his name out northwest there about a month or so ago. I actually got phone calls. They looked my number up and got my the information and got my phone call or got my phone number and called me. People out there. I said, I'll be darned. Wow. We even got a request from somebody in Oregon, another group out there, to do a show out there. I said, I don't fly. Put it that way. I'm not flying out there. I don't do that.
Well, we're down to about 3 minutes, so tell us how we can find your book.
The only place you're going to find it right now, we haven't really done any advertising on Amazon.
On Amazon? And the Amazon, name of it is?
Abair Road. Abair Road. The True Story is the name of it.
Okay. I am definitely writing that down. Abair Road. And if someone wanted to contact you to just to talk to you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, I'd give you my home phone number. It's 518-282-9222.
Okay.
Wow.
I thank you ladies for having me on. It was,
it's Abair Road.
Mm-hmm.
Abair Road. Okay, on Amazon. All right. I'm getting it.
I'd like your feedback.
Thank you for coming on.
I would like your feedback.
And you've been a wonderful guest. I've just been very compelled listening to you. Your account was wonderful, and everything that you're doing, I'm very excited about. And I hope your book does well. I hope it really does.
It's doing well. We haven't really even advertised it yet. And we're going to have a book signing there next month, so, and then we're going to do some advertising. So, well, I thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you for coming
All right,
on.
thank you.
And everyone, we'll see you next week. Thanks again, Brian. You were awesome.
You're very welcome.
And I guess we'll call it a show. Tell everyone good night. Good night, everyone.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, ladies.
Good night, Brian. For some reason, the outro is not playing. It's showing that it's playing, but it's not playing. Can you hear it?
Nope. Just end the show then.
Okay. Everybody, we'll see you next week.
Right, then.
Good night. Thanks for listening to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. Good night.
Have you heard? Sonic Nights is the event of the summer. Like, half the city will be there after 8 p.m.
Oh, you have to be there for half-price real ice cream shakes and ice cream slushes.
And half-price floats. I have to have those.
Well, you can't have them all for yourself. Haven't you heard of sharing?
Of course I have. Want to head to Sonic after we ride the half-pipe?
You know it. I'll see you there in half an hour.
You have to stop by Sonic Nights after 8 p.m. for half-price real ice cream slushes, shakes, and floats. This is how you Sonic. For limited time only, participating Sonic drive-ins.
Have you heard? Sonic Nights is the event of the summer. Like, half the city will be there after 8 p.m.
Oh, you have to be there for half-price real ice cream shakes and ice cream slushes.
And half-price floats. I have to have those.
Well, you can't have them all for yourself. Haven't you heard of sharing?
Of course I have. Want to head to Sonic after we ride the half-pipe?
You know it. I'll see you there in half an hour.
You have to stop by Sonic Nights after 8 p.m. for half-price real ice cream slushes, shakes, and floats. This is how you Sonic. For limited time only, participating Sonic drive-ins.